What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the GTR show. Got a really cool show today on the PRS Silver Sky. Not just the SE, but also the American-made core model. Going to be answering some questions you might have, playing a little bit, doing a little bit of A-Bing so you can hear the difference between the two of them, and just having an awful lot of fun. Super excited about this. I want to also say in a little bit, we're going to be joined by my buddy Brian Wahl from Warship Tutorials. He's going to be hanging out with us, and it's going to be very cool because he was also part of the launch of this instrument. He also has both the SE and the core models. And gosh darn it, so much stuff to cover. First of all, any of the new people that are hanging out here, hello. A very short preamble. About this great guitar. Many of the demos that I watched, people were getting in touch with their inner John Mayer, which is a great thing. I'd love it if in the chat people will be so kind as to make a note. When you think of Les Paul, besides the obvious guy, what player comes to mind? I've got a guy. Strat, what player comes to mind? I've got a guy. And Silver Sky, what player comes to mind? All right, so if Jimmy Page or Slash were your Les Paul folks, there's a bunch of folks. Joe Bonamassa that come to mind with a Les Paul. Strat, Stevie Ray, Jeff Beck, right? Lots of Eric Clapton, right? This guitar, my guess is John Mayer is slightly bummed about the fact that it's really just kind of him hanging out with this guitar, because it's a very special instrument that does a really broad, there we go, thank you, Richard Doyle. Gary Moore, there we go, love it, Strat, Eric Clapton, good morning, my friend. And I'll say hi to everybody in just a moment once I finish this little intro thing. So the great thing about this guitar, at $849 American, it sounds great, it plays great, it feels great, it has all the mojo of this much more expensive instrument, but it's affordable. And what I want to do is let you hear some of the different sounds that it does. At the top there, you heard me playing basically plugged straight into a super reverb. That's the Tone Master, so it's going direct down into Pro Tools. But basically, besides the guitar going straight into the amp and being captured in Pro Tools, that was it. I added a little tiny bit of EMT 140 reverb in Pro Tools. But aside from that, that's the sound of the guitar. We're going to be doing a little bit of trivia here and there, and who knows, we might even, thanks to the Yo-Yo Woman, we might give away some Doppler Gear Garage yo-yos based around the trivia. And this time I'm going to be smart enough to say whoever's answer I see first, I'm going to give it away too. So this is going to be fun and interactive. So here's the deal. Let's take a moment and get right down to some of the tones of this thing, because there were a number of questions and comments that people had on social media, which are some of the key things that I want to speak to. And just kind of my takeaway. There we go. Thank you, Sean. Jimmy Page on the Les Paul, Mark Knopfler, BB King on the ES335, right? So my guess is John Mayer is like, man, I wish more A and B list players would get this instrument. And I'm going to go into a little bit of the why. What is very special about this guitar is it sits at 25.5 inches, right smack in the middle, more or less, of Fender and Gibson scales. So it's got all the, let's see. Stratiness of a Strat, but yet there's something, especially in the bridge position, which gets into a little bit Gibson land. What I love about this is it seems to take all the stratiness, but with that slightly shorter scale, brings you a little bit further into Gibson land, which is a really, really important caveat. One of the other things that, if you look at this thing flat, that I absolutely love. I know that none of you ever left a guitar flat on the floor. But with some of those Gibson type guitars, basically the headstock is back set. And if you were to step on the body, you would snap your neck. What's really interesting about this guitar is that the way that the headstock is set, you actually won't break the neck if you step on the body there. It'll actually lay flat on the floor on the body there, which is actually a really cool feature. Subtle, but important. I don't want to totally steal the thunder from what we're going to be talking about when Brian joins us, but one of the important things about this guitar here is that they kind of reverse the headstock so you can kind of get your Jimmy chords going here, but also the extra length you get on the G string. Now, kind of giving it away, but just in case, anybody that owns a Les Paul out there, what string is the one that always goes out of tune? So, yeah, okay, right? So it's the G string. So they really kind of went out of their way to address some of these things. The other thing is that there are no string retainers. So that is an interesting thing that they've done around all of this headstock stuff. Thank you very much, Sean. Much appreciated. Sean Varley, for participation, you get a Doppler's Gear Garage yo-yo. Meet me in social media and we will make it happen. Jim, you are second on that. Gosh darn it, you get a yo-yo too. How about that? All right, so the thing is that this guitar behaves much like a traditional Strat. One of the cool things is the two-tone controls. This puppy here works on just the bridge pickup, which is one of my favorite things. I call that the Eric Johnson mod. Here it is all the way up, and I'm going to mute the mic here, and hopefully I'll remember to turn it back on, but you'll kind of, when I point down or point up, or I stick my head up or stick my head down, that means I'm bringing it up or bringing it down. Start off with it all the way up. Gosh darn it. How about that? Whoa. All right. So I wasn't planning on going straight into shred mode quite that early into the show. Raphael, what's going on, my dear friend? All right. So first of all, in a moment, I'm going to jump into chat here and make sure I don't miss anything. And I've got a couple of different windows open. So hopefully all the things that I might want to be able to catch, I'm going to, because I want to, you know, this show is not about me sitting here noodling, although I could easily go there. The show is about kind of, all right, hang on, I'll bring that in. This is like, hold on, there we go, hold on. I need to have, I got like 5 million windows open, so let's make sure if I can bring, there we go. Come on, there we go. Thank you, Roy. I appreciate it. So, getting back to the John Mayer thing. I think it kind of breaks John's heart that when he sees people playing this guitar, as much as he loves seeing them pull out their inner John Mayer child and you know, play their favorite John Mayer riffs, with the exception of Sophie Burrell and the Worship Tutorials folks, most of the demos I saw, people were just channeling their inner John Mayer, which is cool. And I want to preface that before I kind of go all the way in and say this. I'm just going to say, I was one of the session players on Guitar Hero. My biggest claim to fame is imitating somebody else. So if your thing is to pick up a guitar and sound like John Mayer or Stevie Ray or Gary Moore or whoever it is, and that is what floats your boat, awesome. If In addition or separate from that, you're like, man, I want to find my voice on the instrument. First of all, this is a great guitar to do it. It has a ton of the different tones in there, and I think that, as I mentioned, that slightly more Gibson scale that it's got going on makes it much easier to kind of get into that space there. With that said, finding your voice on an instrument, one of the reasons I've got all these different guitars here is that each guitar has its own very unique voice. And even, the difference between these two guitars, and I'll pull up the demo you heard there in a minute. What I actually did there was I used the two different guitars, one panned left, one panned right, and I'm not going to tell you truth and shredding. What's going on, my dear friend? How are you? I'm not going to tell you which is which. I'm going to let you try and choose, because there's been some, messaging in social media like, well, this one is this and this one is that. And if I heard them kind of left and right like this, Stefano, what's going on, my man? And anybody that I've missed saying hello, I would have gotten it wrong. And so the interesting thing is that there's some nuances about both these guitars. What you plug into is going to impact what you're doing. And after I kind of do this little A-B thing here where you can kind of hear the two side by side, I'm going to talk about kind of how that impacts things. And actually, I'm going to talk about it now. One of the interesting things is that there are times that the quality of a guitar sitting on its own is not necessarily what makes it magic. What happens is when the rest of the band kicks in, and what you hear when that happens is the magic. Now, if you ask me, Doug, between these two guitars, $850 more, which one I actually prefer? Why? One of the biggest differences is the shape of the neck. The neck here, and I'm not going to really be able to do a very good job of showing this like this. Well, actually, yes, you can see it. This is a slimmer neck. And honestly, I'm looking at it in the playback here. Radical difference. Thank you very much, John. I appreciate it. And welcome. Look at this. They're pretty much, there we go. Hold on, let's get this so they're straight on. Like, that is a much, much, much smaller neck. And for me, George Ross, my dear friend, welcome. One of the things is that, as I heard John, one of the reasons they went with this reverse headstock was so we could kind of get, the Jimmy chords, and, if you're down here in F. With the traditional PRS headstock, you would have been bouncing against that puppy there. All right, so the point being is that's happening there, but they also had to do some modification here. Again, extending that G string there so you get a little bit more real estate, and it stays in tune better. This guitar, the G string does not go out of tune. Generally speaking, it's extremely stable. So the point being is that with this instrument, you got a lot of flipping value for $849. Rumor has it, they did about $1 million worth of business thus far. $1 million. Now, one of the other really cool things about PRS, and I was going to pull up the LinkedIn, but I don't need to do it. You can just take my word for it. Gibson has over 1,000 employees. Fender has over 1,000 employees. PRS, less than 200, about 150. The amount of noise this company is making for their size is ridiculously impressive. And they're working their butt off. And one of the neat things about this guitar, and it's one of the things that Jack Higginbotham, and you can't really see it very well, there we go, on the back of the headstock there, they actually say which factory each of the SE instruments are made. And they purposely do that. Jack Higginbotham is a guy that's in charge of all the SE. He's a guy that I've had the privilege of getting to know a little bit. And their mission with the SEs is to make sure that factory takes pride in the fact that they're actually listed on the back of the headstock. So they have buy-in as it relates to it, not just the country of manufacturing origin, but it's a big deal. So let's take a look at this. Okay, and here's the thing. I will do my best to answer any and all questions, but if I can't answer it accurately, I'm going to punt. Okay, so hang on. Let me just go up here and make sure. Yeah, it took a minute to get everything going here. Facebook was there. So hey, let's go into the negatives here because I want to go there. The 41 millimeter not gonna be a no-go for me, dog. But it's gonna be funny to see all the worship boys walking the same guitar on stage. So that's pretty funny. It was one of the interesting things, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to have Brian from Worship Tutorials here. Is that they didn't just play 5 million John Mayer licks, which I just loved, And again, there's nothing wrong with playing your John Mayer licks, but who are you going to be on this guitar, right? And one of the comments that I saw, let's see here. Let's get to this one there. Where is that one? Hold on. There we go. Chorus slightly brighter, the reveal. But in a band situation, that'd be indistinguishable. I actually disagree with the latter part, and we're going to demonstrate that in a moment. Though I thought I'd never want a Paul Reed Strat. So, this is a very interesting thing is that they very clearly are in the Fender end of the pond. So, the idea is that, with that in mind, there are going to be people that this guitar is going to appeal to that would never have really thought about it. And, for the price point, a number of the people that I know on social media have been like, wow, that thing sounds great. So for me, the main demo that I didn't play on this because, if you have already seen it, no point in regurgitating that. But basically, the demo that I did for the launch day was a song that I wrote on this guitar that almost undoubtedly will appear as one of the few instrumentals on my upcoming album. The point being that immediately where this guitar took me was to a creative space. Very important, right? Because you want a guitar that's going to pull stuff out of you. And as I was kind of hanging out last night, prepping for today, figuring out what the heck I was going to do, I spent some time and kind of came up with another progression. The little groove that you heard there, and let me just make sure I get it all right. Right, Mother's Finest, the truth will set you free. And so, as a matter of fact, let's just jump right into that now. And I'm going to mute myself. And hopefully, and that means that we're not going to be able to do this. Brian is calling. Hang on just 1 second. Brian, you're early. Hang on a second. He's early. Hold on. Brian is trying to join. Hang on a second. Brian, can you do me a favor and nod your head up and down if you can hear me? You got to okay, he's doing a little. Okay, Brian, I'm going to bring you in at about 9:30, okay? All right, awesome, great. All right, so here's the thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up this Pro Tools track here, and it's not the greatest track ever, but the cool thing about it is it does really enable us to hear and guess which guitar is which. So let me get all this business here in the foreground, and let me get my time markers in my window here. Come on, Pro Tools. Everything is in the foreground there right now, which is not really what I want. Okay, there we go. Come on. All right, so the deal is that with this, where are you? Hello? Hiding way in the background. All right, so what I've done is I've isolated the two rhythm guitar parts. And let's see, this should be the right thing. I'll mute myself in a moment. Okay, so what you're going to hear is one guitar on the left and another guitar on the right. They're the two different Silver Skies. So I'm curious, and I'll start off with the left and the right. I would love it if people will drop in the chat and just say, all right, do you think the one on the left is the SE or the Core? Here we go. This is going to be fun. One more time, this time with the drums muted. The last thing I want you to hear, and this is one of the things about why the differences between guitars is so good, is when you get this going on. I'm going to bring, we'll start here. All right, my buddy Brian Wahl messaged me saying he's not getting the right-hand side, so I would love it if the rest of the world out there, you can let me know if you're not getting the right-hand side either. Mono speaker, I'm on a mono speaker. Ah, there we go. No, okay, Michael, thank you very much. So left SE, right core. Sean, left SE. So I got the right and the left. Thank you, Melissa. Okay. All right. So here's the deal. No. So the funny thing is, I started on the left-hand side with the core, and the right-hand side was the SE. And so here is the crazy things. Everybody's like, the SE is brighter. Or sorry, my bad. The core is brighter. It pretty much is, but not on every part and not on every tone. Just kind of like, wow. So that was basically straight into the Super Reverb Tone Master, going straight out into Pro Tools. And that one had no reverb in post. That's just a little bit of the reverb in the amp. But that was the thing, is that I did that. I was like, what exactly, Raphael? So I was kind of like, wait, what? So as you move through the different pickup selections and as you play differently, because one of the things that I do is, as you've probably heard me rant about, is I use lots of different guitar picks. And because I'm always trying to get different types of tones, sometimes I want all the attack, sometimes I don't want all the attack. When I'm doing something funky, I want to hear of the pick happening in the background there. So as an end result, I was just like, wow. And then the two of them together, they sit really nicely. Melissa, I was going to say core left and SE right. Do I get a yo? You definitely get a yo-yo there, love. Me. And one that you can, in any case. All right. All right, so what I want to do now is I'm going to, hopefully without making too much crazy noise, is I'm going to spend a moment just playing through this guy. You've heard me playing through this guy a little bit. I'm going to mute myself, and I'll probably make like some little faces, but you know, I'll probably walk from bridge all the way pickup selection by pickup selection. And you know what? Here's the thing. Let me start off with a bridge. The tone control is going to be all the way up, and then I'm going to back it off a little bit, which is one of the great things about this. So we'll start there. Snap. There we go. Now, so here's Alan McDonald. Hello and good morning, my friend. Let's see if I can get the right window up and running here. So, gosh, wait, how this, wait. That is not supposed to be the overlay that's on there. We're on, what scene? No. It just never stops. Hang on just 1 second. Okay, hang on a second. All right, hang on, wait a second. Hang on. Where are my overlays? Gosh darn it, I hid them from myself. All right, window. Hold on a second. Oh, my word. Let's get the right thing going on here. And I need to bring Brian Wahl in just a moment. Why is that overlay on? You're not supposed to be on. There we go. All right, All right. Okay, so first of all, let me just take a quick moment, and then I got to get Brian in here, who's been very patiently waiting. So let me just kind of jump in on this, and then I'm just going to very quickly talk to this. So, here's the thing is that I presume, there we go, I got left and right. Okay, it's subtle, but the thing is that, it depends on what device you're listening to, and it also, that is to say, on a handheld device, like mobile or in studio monitors, I can really hear the difference, and also the way it sits in the part. And the other thing is when you start layering the two guitars together, you're like, wow, you get that stereo separation. Sometimes the biggest difference between them is great. And here's the thing is in John's comment, the subtleties aren't noticeable once the drummer kicks in. So this is one of the other things is that one of the comments was in terms of the extra top end on the core, which there is, was, once the drummer kicks in, you don't necessarily notice it. One of the demos that I'm hopefully going to get to, or may not, is just plugged straight into the Super Reverb. And that is where you really notice that little bit of extra top end. So it depends. Well, I notice it as I'm talking between these with a dirty tone, but it's much more subtle. But when you're plugged into that clean tone, which again is a big part of that bell-like thing of John Mayer's tone, you kind of go, oh, there it is, that thing that just kind of makes the guitar sit, right? Alan, love you, my dear friend. Awesome. I've got bass right down the middle. Practice does amazing things. I don't know about this. Thank you, my dear friend. Okay, awesome. I think he kind of likes it, you think. Coffee, the funny thing is I think I'm only one in, and I was at about 5 this morning. Frederick, good morning. Thank you, my friend. Much appreciated. This is not about blowing up my balloon, but I always appreciate things. So this was the one I wanted to talk about. The color, it's a funny thing. Was I able to grab that one? Brian, thank you for hanging on. We're going to bring you in just a moment. One of the comments was, no, I'm not going to find it. I wasn't able to grab that one. But basically, it was something to the effect of, PRS makes, and I don't agree with this, but it is one of the things like, PRS is basically pretty face. There is how do I say this without being a jerk? There is a group of people that buy guitars simply for the way they look. Now, if you kind of take a look right back there, there's a red Firebird, and somewhere over there's a beautiful RK Custom, or RH Custom rather. Beautiful maple top, just the most ridiculous craftsmanship. Every bit is on par with the top 10 top PRS stuff, right? That's a Korean bolt-on Epiphone. But the color of that guitar, I saw that, I was like, ooh, right? So the color, you bond with the color. The funny thing, Sean Varley's on here, hiding up there somewhere is the pink American original 60 Stratocaster. I love the pink. Melissa was like, what? Saw that guitar and I was like, so resonating with the color and the look of the instrument is important. So, and I wanted to bring that in. Mark, thanks for the kind words. Kind of like the SE a little bit more. And here's the thing, is depending on where you are and what you're doing and also the way the player resonates. You know, again, the difference between the two necks here. And by the way, one of the things that Brian and I will be talking about is this guy's got locking tuners. This one doesn't. We'll go into the kind of the differences, but he's a PRS. If there's a certification, he's got it, and I'm just kind of like I don't know, I'm a newbie in a certain extent. And you know, so the funny thing is Fishman guitar, the legato stuff on the smaller neck is much easier. Honestly, you can just get your hand down, and it enables you to kind of, part of the legato thing is getting a little bit under the frets. The fret wire, as I feel and understand, is the same size, but the difference is that little slightly thinner. You know, and honestly, it's a very Les Paul kind of a neck on this thing, if I'm really honest about it. And yes, there's a certain strattiness to it, but there's also a Les Paul feeling about this. And again, it's the scale. I've been playing a lot of Gibsons lately. So the point being is that, and I've also, in the process of doing that, been kind of figuring out the legato thing coming over from having spent so much time on Fender scale. So that slightly smaller neck actually makes a big difference. Listening on AV amp and big speakers, I love it. I love it. And thanks for joining us, my friend. Great to see you. Okay. So interesting. So, you know, Michael, your point is, so this is the thing. Yes, but, right? Like, there are going to be different things that they do better. The short version is, and we could just stop here. Brian, I'm going to get you in a second. Is it for $849? I'm being kind of like, wow, they're going to sell 1 million of these. They've already done $1 million worth of business. All right. Okay. Lawyer blues. Okay. All right. So let me first of all get Brian here. One of the other little things that I needed to get going in pre-production that didn't happen this morning was finding my earbuds. So I'm going to need to do a little something. So Brian, you're going to cover for me when I bring you in, because I've got to mute my speakers and I got to find, and I may even just go to regular headphones. So it's just me being a freshman, but like my earbuds like just vanished in the midst of all of this. So ladies and gentlemen, with that said, it is my distinct honor, privilege, greatest. Okay, hang on. Brian, give me a thumbs up. I can see you over there. So I'm going to butter the world up. Brian, first of all, is a dear friend. He's actually had me to his house, which is very daring. Anybody that actually invites me into the privacy of their home is living dangerously, especially when I got a lot of guitars around, because I'm like, hey, can I play that? Brian is founded and is part of the Worship Tutorials team. Now, you've heard me talk a lot about them because they create amazing sounds. He is a guy that started with a YouTube channel, basically him strumming and singing. Now, basically, just shy of 1 million subscribers later, a lot of hard work, a great team with the awesome Bradford Mitchell, and there is another person, Fuller, Brian Michael Fuller, that's involved, but not as much, but they've just been such a contributor. They're also responsible for the dissemination and sale of more Helix presets than anybody else on the planet other than Line 6 themselves. They partnered with me and Sweetwater and Line 6 on a Helix House of Worship package. I did a video training on Helix. They did presets. You know, they were part of this launch. We swim in a lot of the same water. So, you know, it's such a privilege to know people that have the kind of work ethic and integrity and tone. What I, again, loved about what the Worship Tutorial guys did, they didn't kind of do the next imitation John Mayer thing. Again, no shame in that if that's your thing. But I love they were like, hey, we do our thing. And, you know, as much as the praise and worship thing is like, hey, let's turn on some compressions and delay and reverb and have at it, they've had a huge impact in terms of Sunday morning. And my guess is more than anybody else, they've impacted the sound of Sunday morning. So Brian is a great fan. He loves his PRS. And with that, let me bring him in. And I'm going to need to mute me. So Brian, you're going to need to do a little bit of a monologue. So I'm going to set you up. I would like you to tell me your big takeaways about the SE from kind of initially unpacking it, kind of let's start with that so I don't miss anything too juicy, because I'm going to have to figure out a little bit of monitoring here, which, sorry for the freshman move. Share kind of from, you know, you got the guitar, you pulled it out. What were the initial thoughts? Let me bring you in here. Hang on, let's do that so we don't get an echo. And add you here. There we go. The man, the myth. Look at that picture. Hold it. Brian, you can hear me, yeah? Okay, so I am going to, let's see, I'm going to run off frame, which is incredibly rude. Brian, nice guitar, by the way. And, you know, one of the other things I love, sorry, we're going to talk about the guitar, but look at all that gear. Brian, you know, so one of my favorite things about this channel is that I inspire people to spend money. I love that. Not that I inspire them to waste money, but I inspire people to hear something that they go, you know what, that's going to help me get closer to my musical vision. Brian is one of the people that helps me spend money. And in spite of that, Melissa loves him. So the thing is that, so Brian, all right, you know, I'm going to run off and find some headphones here. Why don't you kick it off with kind of your initial take on, oh, thank you. There you go. Thank you. Those will do. Hey, talk about tech support. Hang on. Let's get the Doppler wired for sound here, and I'm actually not going to miss out on this. Brian, why don't you go ahead and get started, and you know what to do. The adapter. What?
You didn't switch to Brian.
Brian, go ahead and talk for me, would you? Uh-oh. Hang on, I'm not hearing your audio.
We've got you, not Brian.
Hold on a second. No sound from Brian on Worship Tutorial or Facebook. Uh-oh, hang on a second. Well, I was going blind there. So I tell you what, Brian, I'm going to keep listening here. All right. Well, hang on. You keep... I should have you. I wonder what that sign means. Okay, so I'm gonna, Brian, you keep messing with stuff there, and I'm gonna talk about my initial unboxing here. Brian, I love you. You look handsome, and your picture is amazing. You can hear me, correct? Yeah, no, we already know you can hear me. All right. Yeah, I should have you, and I should have the freshman moves. I didn't check the level. All right, Brian, do me a favor. Give me a holler. I'm going to take you out of the picture, and I'm going to go here. There we go. All right, the Doppler is back. Hello. Let me make sure I've got good level here. There we go. All right. So first of all, my apologies to everybody about that slight delay. Brian has no audio. So my initial take when I pulled it out of the case was, or it comes in a gig bag, was I love the color of the back of the neck. If I'm really brutally honest, I am not down with the kind of, if you will, kind of natural maple look. It's just not my thing. I love this vintage feel. And one of the things that John said about the guitar, just in its inception, is they wanted to bring vintage features into the marketplace.
Brian says, I think you have me muted.
What's that?
Brian says, I think you have me muted. Here's your phone so I can text you.
There's my phone. Thank you. All right, so Brian thinks I have him muted. So, which should not be the case because I've got him entered there. This is what happens when you don't have a tech call. Brian, go ahead and talk for me there, bud. You know, I tell you what, why don't you do me this favor? Call back in. You can hear me. I'm dumping you. Interview is on. It should have been fine. Okay, so, sorry, folks. My apologies for my personal moment in freshman hour. Aesthetically, anything that kind of is... Okay. Brian, your volume is all the way up, but I am not seeing audio from you. Hang on, I have to bring you in. Hang on. Let's bring you here. You're typing. Hey, what's going on, handsome? Muted in sound levels. Okay, hang on. Wait. Where the hell is sound levels? Oh, this is Doppler being a freshman. Brian, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Hey.
I'm sending you a text. There,
you don't need to. Your audio is live.
My mute has been lifted.
Your mute has been lifted. My apologies. This is 100% on me.
I was silenced.
For those of you that had to endure my lame tech moment, searching for headphones, not looking at the level, and then just kind of, at least I'm groveling.
Hey, hi John. By the way. Now they say I have a feedback echo. Which makes no. Well, I won't, because everything. No speakers on my end are amplifying.
And I don't have any speakers on this end, and I shouldn't have.
You've got to double me.
Okay, hang on.
You might need to mute his feed.
I bet that's because it's somehow doing something on loopback. So do me a favor. I'm going to mute my mic.
Yeah.
Oh wait, no, I know what I'm going to do. Go ahead and talk, and let's find out if you've got feedback.
Okay, I'm talking now, and Doug, you're muted. Is there still feedback? Everybody? Anybody? What was the question that you had for me? What was my initial reaction when pulling the guitar out of the box? So Bradford is, John says it's fixed. Okay, so Bradford is an owner of the, Doug, are we calling it the core model? Even though it's not technically a core? I'm just going to do that for the sake of, it's easy to say. US made versus core.
Foot switch and switches. Okay, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of editing back and forth here to make this work audio-wise. My apologies. So I fed you misinformation. So there is core, SE, and S2. This is one of the core instruments, and so it is officially a core instrument, and I was able to verify that in a couple of different places. I fed you wrong information. My fault.
They say we were both muted there for while you were talking to me. Okay, so Bradford owns the core model. I have played it, but now they say there's no me. I don't know. I've played it quite a bit. So when I got this, my initial reaction was, if you weren't paying much attention, you would think they're the same guitar. Seeing the two back to back, because we've done a lot of content with both guitars, there's a pretty stark difference in person, both in the way they look, the way they feel, and in my opinion, marginally in the way they sound. So, yeah, so I'm very impressed. Like the Too Long Didn't Read version, or Too Long Didn't Watch. I think for under $1,000, there are lots of Strat style guitars in the world at that price point. Fender makes very good ones. You know, other brands make really good ones, but I think this one is really, really hard to beat as far as how well it plays, how great it sounds right out of the box. Playability has always been a big, big thing for me with PRS guitars, and attention to detail, construction, that kind of thing. And this one lives up to all of the hype and stereotype that you get from PRS guitars. It's pretty awesome. But it does have like a vintagey, like the core Silver Sky struck us in this way too. It was weird because it felt like an old guitar and a new guitar and a very modern. It felt like a very vintage and a very modern guitar all at the same time, which is an odd feeling if you've never played one. It's a strange thing. This one is kind of in the same way. It has like a vintage Fender type of a thing, or an older vintage, Strat style guitar kind of a thing, but it also has the modern PRS, everything is absolutely perfect thing as well. So that's my takeaway. And it sounds really good. And I have tones here. Can I play? Let me see if it comes through. Doug, I was not going to do this, but Doug talked about how we don't do the Mayer thing and we did all the reverb. So is that coming through? Oh, yeah. Sound okay? It's compressed. Yeah, I can see that. Anyway, I don't need to play a bunch. It sounds real good. Doug, you've been playing a lot.
I've been playing a lot. All right, so I will do my best to make this switching effective and interesting. So, first of all, that spanky tone. What what I love about what Brian does and the worship tutorial guys do is they create these really lovely. Although there's compression, there's still this top end and breathing through. What I love about this guitar is it is exceptionally versatile. It doesn't just do the Strat thing. And I think my favorite part about, this whole, what tone am I on? It's not, the pickups in particular. Okay. So anybody out there in web world, what does? Hang on, let me make sure. No, it's so the pickups in this guitar are called 635S's. Anybody out there for a yo-yo? What does the 635S? And you got to get the whole thing right, or else you don't get a yo-yo. What does 635S actually stand for? Brian, I know that you know this. So one of the other things I want to do is I want to take a moment, because I think this is going to be something that people are going to be interested in. I want to talk about, the key differences that I noticed between this guitar and the core model. So first of all, and Brian, it was interesting. I didn't watch through all of your videos, but I did watch, you guys doing the AB thing. Can you do me a favor and nod if you notice how big the difference was in the neck? So, hang on. No, I got to bring you in on that. That looks like meaty. And
yeah, so the core Silver Sky that Bradford has is an earlier one. We got it from PRS like not long after it launched. And the necks are very different in many ways. So first of all, the finish is different. This has a satin finish. The core has a gloss-ish. It's their version of gloss finish, which feels really nice. Although I'm told there are core models that do have a satin finish, although it's not quite as satiny. I don't know if that. I can neither confirm nor deny that. What I have, so initially the core model that Bradford has a much chunkier neck. I wouldn't say it's wider, but there's a lot more wood here under your hand. And it's also, I'm sure you've talked about this, the radius of being 7.25 means that it will feel chunkier because there's more wood up here too, because it's a rounder radius. But there's definitely more back here on the core that Bradford has. Now, what I've been told is, or what I've read, is that there are two different neck profiles on the core Silver Skies that they changed it at one point. And the newer ones have a profile that feels more like this one. So, and I don't know. I was going to ask you, Doug, how old is your Silver Sky, your core Silver Sky? How old is it? How long have you, or when was it made? And I don't know whether it's all the Silver Skies that come out now have this type of a radius, or some have one and some have the other. But I have read that there are two different versions of the neck profile. So I don't know, but they're all called the same thing.
Mine is a 2020, judging by the first two characters being a 20, and I'm going to believe that's going to be the year designation. So I am co-owner of this guitar, but I am of the belief that it starts at 20 on its own. So I think it's a 2020. So the interesting thing is I've also got some photos from the factory that I'll queue up here. So one of the neat things is, and I'm surprised you haven't gone up for that yet, but obviously with COVID, it's a thing. So unfortunately, everybody got the 635 and the S wrong. So kind of right, but not totally right. So S is the designation on the pickups for the import versions. The 635, and everybody got really close. I talked to 63 and 64. It's actually, as I understand, it was 63, 64, and 65 pickups. And this is one of the things that the 65 Strat, there's a guy named Joe Reggio that's a luthier in the Pacific Northwest who, brilliant guy, was a huge help in me picking up kind of, there's a gold top back there. So the idea is that, you know, he really knows a lot about, as I was kind of looking at picking up that gold top, he knows a lot about vintage guitars. He said, look, the sleeper Strats are the 65s. Everybody's excited about the 58s and, you know, a 64, but the 65s are very special. So the fact that they kind of went through, as I understand the process, was John and Paul got together and kind of went through all of the favorite guitars and the quality of them. And one of the other things that they made a point of doing, and I had a conversation. I also want to reference my dear friend James Fox from PRS, who's a PRS rep, who kind of, I was able to kind of verify a bunch of facts about the guitar. One of the other things that they did, they grabbed the right guitar here, is that if I turn this puppy up, that's really darn quiet. Now, I am lucky that kind of facing Mecca, and that's Oliver Hand, I think that's his term. So if I move this around, you get electromagnetic EMF, electromagnetic frequencies, or whatever the heck that is, interference from the electromagnetic fields that the guitar basically amplifies. And so I'm fortunate kind of at this sweet spot here where it's pretty darn good. I've had recording setups where when you're facing the sweet spot in your monitors, the guitar is just making obscene amounts of noise. So there we go. That's so funny. So John, so the point being is that this guitar, for the amount of gain in a... I'm going to roll off on the tone control a little bit. That's a really, really small amount of noise to be coming through. So one of the things that I know that they were working on that James relayed to me was not only making it such that the guitars were, you know, they had the vintage tones to them, and the other thing is that all three pickups are the same. Now, before I turn it back over to Brian, because I know he's going to have some great stuff to say, is that a couple of years ago, I had the privilege of going and visiting with Cesar Diaz's widow, And Cesar was the guy that worked on Stevie Ray's tone, and was Stevie's tech. So Cesar bought up all the old cloth wire when Fender got rid of it, and he would wire Stevie's guitars. The wire would be the same length from the pickup to the pickup selector, and he did that such that any impedance caused by the cloth wire would be consistent across all three pickups. So if I know that, I'm sure John and Paul have to know that as well. So there is this kind of concept, and it was one of the other things, like Leo Fender was a businessman. He did not play guitar. There's no way in hell Leo made a bridge, middle, and neck pickup. He would have made one pickup, at least in the early days, that you would put in all three positions and layer it across there, at least in the beginning. And I'm 99% positive that I'm right on that. And if I'm wrong, I'm really wrong. Brian Wahl, what do you got for us?
I would totally agree with you that Leo Fender probably made one pickup to put in all the positions. And he probably wanted to try to make the same pickup to put in a Telecaster too. Who knows? But I'll talk about pickups because that is a very strong point of this guitar. So I prefer the neck on the core, at least the one that we have. But I like chunky necks. So this DGT over here is like the perfect neck profile for me. Anyway, it's a little chunky. But so we have talking about the import versions of the pickups on the SE line, the S pickups. I want to talk give PRS some props for a bit, because so in the room we have, or at least between Bradford and I, we have core 8515s and the import 8515S pickups. That's a custom 24 back there. I have a 594 that has the 5815 LT core pickups, and Bradford has a semi-hollow SE that has the 5815S pickups. We have the 635 JMS pickups, and then we have the 635 core pickups. So PRS has done a fantastic job with their S import pickups of putting great sounding pickups in their import guitars. And it didn't used to be that way, because I've owned a handful of SE guitars over the years. I've owned a Zach Myers. I have a Tremonti SE around that would have like whatever they put in before they started voicing the import pickups like the American pickups. And I think that's one of the strongest things that PRS does that sets them apart in the import market from other builders. In our experience, the pickups just aren't as strong on other import guitars. And the pickups are a matter of taste. So the Bradford and I did a comparison video, and I think I said this phrase like 4 or 5 times in the video, because the core Silver Sky is brighter and it has more clarity and a little bit more sparkle than the SE. But like one person's bright is another person's harsh, and one person's dull or muddy is another person's warm. So these things are all, a lot of it comes down to preference. There are things like note separation and definition and depth and headroom that can be different, that are like one is emphatically better than the other. But with these pickups, they're so close that I think it's one of the biggest strong points of this guitar, because in many other import guitars that I have owned over the years, I almost instinctively swap out pickups, because I like to do that anyway, but I don't feel the need to do that. Another thing about these pickups is I am not a fan of Strat guitars, of 3 single coil pickup Strat guitars at all. Like, I don't own one apart from the SE Silver Sky. I typically I do have a Strat that I love. It's a Shelton, but it has a P90 in the bridge, and then it has an option for a humbucker as well. Because the main reason is I've never really liked Strat bridge pickups. to me, they've always been a little thin, a little wiry sounding. I love a Tele bridge. I like a great humbucker bridge. But the bridge on this and on the Core Silver Sky sounds really good. I know that John Mayer famously said that the bridge is warm and the neck is bright, right? Like that's the way he put it. But like, you know, here's like a big tone on the bridge pickup. I'll take all that reverb off. So, to me, that kind of a tone is it's really full sounding, with especially when you hit it with gain. It doesn't sound like a can of bees like other Strat bridges that I have played. It's just not a type of guitar that I gravitate to. Although I do recognize how amazing Strat guitars are and how iconic the tones from them have been over the last 60 plus years. But yeah, that's my big takeaway with the pickups on this guitar and on all of the SE lineup across the board. I think, I don't know how long it's been since PRS started doing the S, versions of the American-made pickups, but that I don't hear people talking about that all that much. But I think that is a huge deal as far as the quality of the instruments you get from the overseas PRS stuff. And it really does set them apart. All right, Doug, I'm going back to you. Are you there? There he is. I think I'm still on, Doug. I think you're muted and I'm not.
Hang on. There we go. I was getting all fancy in preview mode. All right, so I want to speak to a couple of things about the pickups. First of all, Romeo is correct in that they are different. One of the things that I noticed is the pole pieces on the SE are almost all the same height. And on the Core, they're not. They're kind of have that kind of 63 kind of staggered kind of thing. But sonically, it is my understanding that they were going for the same sound. So I want to take a moment and talk a little bit about the differences. The neck shape. The S pickups, which sonically sound very, very similar, and they called them 635s. The tuning gears. Non-locking tuners. There will be, according to my dear friend James Fox, and I read about it somewhere else online yesterday, these are the same dimensions hole-wise as the locking tuners that are on the Core edition. So there's going to be a retrofit available for people that want to use the locking tuners. Honestly, and the other thing is that John likes to keep the bridge back against the body, and that's how these guys ship. So for that reason, I opted not to be able to use the bar at all. But that gets us to the 2-point bridge system on this guitar versus the 6-screw bridge on the Core guitar. For those of us who go back to Stratville, and I've broken well over a dozen tremolo arms. I used to have to replace bridges and pull the block and the bridge off many a Strat because I was a flogger. And so, there is honestly a lot to be said if you're going to use the bar a lot about a 2-point knife. Although it's not classically a knife, it's more like knife edge, and you'll get a better tremolo response tuning wise. It's one of the reasons that, for example, the Jeff Beck Strat has got a 2-point bridge system. So the colors are obviously a difference. Made in Maryland versus made in Indonesia. and then the body wood. So I actually have pulled up, and I hope I can get to this document without breaking in. And I'm going to go into preview mode for a second, and hopefully not mute myself this time. There we go. And let me get over to Acrobat. There we go. All right, good. Publish. Live mode. All right, so what I'm looking at here is basically the specs. And I know it's going to look like very small to you, but I just want to read down through here. And so this is the official PRS specs on this. And Brian and I were fortunate enough that we got this, these guitars. And in a minute, I'm going to ask Brian if he's as paranoid as I am. I often get guitars in what are called embargo. So before they ever actually come out, they show up here. And I'm always paranoid about them accidentally being in the frame. So Brian, I'll ask you about that in a minute. In any case, and I realize it looks like, chicken scratch over here. Solid body, poplar body, which is different than the core. 22 frets, 22.5 scale, maple with a rosewood board. The neck shape is a 635 JM. And again, so that's going to be going back to that 63 through 65 Strat. Neck depth at first at the 1/2 fret. What the neck depth at the 1/2 fret? I guess that's the half a fret. 53 and I don't even know what that means. 53 64 inches. Oh, duh. 53 64ths. I'm not going to go through all of that stuff and make it into more of an idiot of myself. Rosewood board. The fret radius 8.5. The fingerboard radius rather 8.5 inches, which I think I love. Small birds on the inlay. Anything else super important on here? The electronics kind of down here. Again, the 635 JM, and then the S in there is talking about that. 2-tone controls. The bridge, it has its own tone control, all what I call the Eric Johnson mode. You obviously get the buzz canceling. Oh, I'm into super reverb now. And then PRS Classic 10 through 46. And it comes with a gig bag, which is not the same gig bag as the American offering. So the neck is slender-ish, but not Ivan as slender. So let me see if I can get back here. And what I wanted to do now, the reason I switched over to this... listen to that, huh? So I'm running into the super reverb. I hate playing with these things in my ears, but this is where on this particular tone you really hear the difference between the different pickups. I shouldn't say the pickups, the different guitars. I'm going to... Oh, hang on. Yeah, here we go. And this is where you really hear... got to plug it in first. The amount of top end on this guitar. Right? Let me pull up the track and play along with Brian. I'm going to abandon you for just a minute. So I hope you don't mind. Do me a favor. I can see you over here on my preview. Can you give me a thumbs up if you still love me? All right, there we go. Good. I'm gonna bring up the track here, and hopefully it's gonna work. All right, so the interesting thing about all of that, and it's kind of this one of the funny kind of dichotomies, is for that particular sound, core sounds better, right? It just that little extra bit of snap you get sitting in the track makes the guitar more present. I'm actually much more comfortable on this instrument, and I can go back in. I don't know. All right, here we go. Add a little treble, and hang on here. Now we're back. So, it's just like add a little treble, and you're like, huh. So I'm kind of curious. All right, how does it sound with higher gain? All right, hang on. Sweet tones through the internet and my earbuds. Wow. Oh, awesome. Great. So, the neat thing is, hang on. Who's messaging? Rick Harrison's messaging me. Hello, Rick Harrison. Adding a little bit of treble back in on the amp just to kind of compensate between the two. I have never had a sound person say to me in my entire life, so like, hey, dude, could you add some more treble? Usually the guitar is too bright. So the interesting thing about the two guitars, apples to apples, if you will, this is a great comment. And what I love is that we can say too bright, but does that really mean what we're saying? And sometimes it's just warmer, right? They're different body. I did not research what the body width is. I know this is popular. That's alder, I think. But considering how different the guitars are, they sound a lot alike with the exception of the top end. And once I put that... pull the top end back a little bit. There we go. Now that... I'm going to pull a little bit back. Apologize if I'm blowing anybody's ears out there. I'm trying to be a little bit fast, but I'm... All right, so there, again, and this is an interesting thing. That's a great question. Hang on a second. What size are the frets? It does not say what size the frets are on the spec sheet. I will find out, Chris. But making a subtle adjustment where where you could really hear the difference. Then I should say when I had less treble, then I added more treble. And then I kind of want to split the difference. All of a sudden, the two guitars sound a lot. They sound a lot more alike. Chris came in a little bit late, so the last thing I want to do over here for him, and I'm not giving you a hard time about that, he said, hey, what about something higher gain? It's a little bit hotter. Let me pull that back a little bit, just in case I'm potentially blowing anybody else's ears out. There we go. And it's not a super high gain tone. I do not have speakers up and it's doing that. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Flippin' Bloom. But that does mean that you're hearing the coming through. Got a nice little bit of top end on there. All right. Chris, I'm sorry, I don't know about that. But again, getting back to Henry's comment, then I'm gonna bring Brian back in. I would say this is a warmer guitar, and that is a much better way of describing it. Yes, that one is brighter, but it's, again, when you hear, especially with the super reverb kind of where I had it at that first setting, it just pokes its head up a little bit over the top of the mix, which is really important when you're playing with a live band. Can you adjust the treble? Yes, but generally, and this is the important point before I get done beating it into the ground, is that most of the time, we don't want to go back and set our amp for every guitar. Yes, if we're working in the modeling world, we can change stuff around, but generally, we want to be able to, when we swap out guitars, have them make sense. And generally speaking, I kind of have a main tone, swap out guitars that bring that special flavor, but not too disparate. So that's what I've got to say about that. Let me bring my buddy Brian in. Brian.
Different guitar now. There was a question. I thought this was a good question. I forget who, I don't see who asked it now. But they said they had a PRS with a wide, thin neck, which is what this is. This is a custom 24. So this has a wide, thin. This is the JM. The wide, thin is definitely wider. So that is makes it feel a lot different. I'd say as far as like how much of it is in the back of your hand here, the wide, thin neck from PRS is great, and I don't feel like it's that thin. This feels like a regular medium C with just a little bit more width. And so the Silver Sky has, it's a little different. It feels a little shallower on this end. Like I think they did like an asymmetrical curve, which I think most PRS carves are, because it fits the asymmetrical nature of the anatomy of our hands. But it feels like there's a little bit less under on this part of the neck right here. So, yeah, but the width of the wide thin makes it feel a little different. I prefer the wide thin neck, but that's just a preference thing. Were there any other questions? Doug, I can play a little more. I don't know what Doug had going on, but my setup is a Axe FX 3. Well, Doug had that cool Fender amp. The tone. What are those things called? Tone Master, something like that. Anyway, I have an Axe FX 3 with a matchless DC30 on one side and a Chieftain on the other. So it's very more AC30-esque. So I can just kind of go through pickup positions. There's that bridge pickup, which to me again sounds spanky. And like a Strat, but it has like a lot of fat to it. And I just have a King of Tone going into it. Here's the 2. One thing I love about this guitar and the Core Silver Sky is the middle pickup, which is not a pickup that I don't think Strat players, I always feel like you got neck, you've got the 2 and 4, those are where the Strat purists live, right? But the middle pickup is great, especially for if you don't want to go as chewy, like as iconically, Strat as the neck. This middle pickup, it almost has like the middle position of a telly kind of a thing going on. Sounds great. If you do the, super ambient thing, it works really nice for that. Anyway, the middle position is really, really nice. Of course, the 4 position. Only a Strat can do that, right? Anyway, that's pretty poor. I lost where I was. And then, of course, the neck. I saw another question earlier about the way the trim is set up, and Doug talked about this. This is a John Mayer thing where they're just decked. So, I haven't pulled this off, but I would guess the claw arm is just all the way up. And you've got to give it a pretty good amount of force to get it, which is not the way I prefer to set up a Strat. In fact, Bradford Strat, he asked me to float it, so we floated his, and it holds tune just fine. I would probably ultimately float this one just so I'd have a little bit more play. But I would imagine, I assume that decking it, because you've got this contact with the body here, it's going to change the way it sounds, and maybe that's why. Maybe that's where some of that extra girth comes from on that bridge position, is that extra contact with the body. So that's the way it comes set up from the factory, and that's the way John Mayer sets his guitars, or has his guitars set up. So, yeah, but it does, like, if you're not used to it, it makes using the trim a little different, if you're used to, like this is set, this is floating on the custom. Is it just me, or is this guitar a lot louder acoustically than this one? Anyway, yeah. Maybe not necessarily. It just sounds different. So that's how the trim comes set up from the factory. I haven't had any issues with tuning at all. So like this guitar stays here. Let's do a test. Still in tune. That's pretty impressive, especially for like an import, budget level guitar, to have that kind of tuning stability on a Strat style guitar. Yeah, it's good. That's one of the reasons why I love to play PRS guitars. They're so well made, and they perform so well as far as tuning, intonation, and they sound great. I love the way their guitars sound as well. So, are there any other questions we can talk about? Doug, you have anything else that you'd like to discuss? Is he there? I don't see him. All right. Well, there he is. he appears from no.
So I do have something that I desperately want to share with everybody, because this is I threatened about this in the promo video. We got about 5 more minutes before I turn into the guitar teacher Doug here, but let's see if I can get into preview mode before I do this. I've kind of learned something new. I don't want that. I want Preview. There we go. All right, now we're going to publish. All right, so what you're looking at, there we go, that actually worked. I've got a little slideshow from Experience PRS. First of all, hello, Andrew JB, if you're still there from Hawaii. Hello, everybody. So I had the good fortune to be able to, and it was a lot of fun with the publisher of Worship Musician, and again, my buddy James Fox, PRS rep extraordinaire, and Bruce's son Drew from Worship Musician magazine. We got a chance to tour the factory as part of Experience PRS, and I snagged a couple of my favorite photos here. Look at that. John Mayer flipping necks. And you know what, John, and also getting back to Fishman guitar, they are not going to make, in my opinion, ever a true humbucker in the bridge position, because as I think John pointed out, is it kind of deviates from the form factor. But the Fiore, the Mark Lettieri signature guitar, is a great guitar. All right, so here we've got that kind of reverse headstock, and you can see up close and personal what they've done to extend that G string out. There is no string retainer. And so the beauty of this is it makes it so the G string, as Brian points out, these guitars stay in tune exceedingly well. And it's kind of, it's a funny thing. It's kind of, if you will, the Jimi Hendrix version of the upside down headstock. I love this photo here because this is, as you rarely see a Silver Sky, or here with some sawdust on it. I don't know about why I love this photo so much, but I just do. I just love seeing kind of the grit on the edge of the body before this thing was done. Call me a guitar geek, but this stuff lights my fire. And again, the sawdust, just like PRS stuff is so finished by the time you get it, but to kind of see it going through the process of being, and then that kind of, use the forced air to get it out of there. Silver Sky, anybody? Like, look at all those guitars. And this was really cool. Just seeing this thing on its own, just kind of pulled apart. And, it's just like, wow. Thanks, Rafa. Isn't that cool? And it's just like, there it is kind of before it gets assembled. And I love seeing all the kind of the barcodes and all that stuff. And in this photo here, this is interesting because one of the things that I kind of tried to demonstrate was making this thing make noise. And it's interesting how they've used the shielding tape there. They obviously have done some sort of research, like these guys would do, about where to lay the tape and how to kind of surround the pickups and do something that provides kind of some sort of common shielding. So what's interesting is Romeo, you talked about the differences between the pickups. Here you can see that neck pickup, that pull piece on the sixth string there at the bottom left of the photos, kind of poking through. I am fairly certain that they just use same length pole pieces and then they just kind of position them appropriately through the length of the depth of the pickup. So in turn, changing the electromagnetic field for each one of these individual strings, and it kind of makes sense to a certain extent that the low E string would be, you'd back that pole piece off a little bit. So obviously, they did something here that was purposeful. So in any case, all right, let me back out of here, but I wanted to share those with you. I've got 1 minute here, so let me just take a moment and back to live mode. Good. And I want to say, first of all, thank you for everybody that's hung out. T-Bone, what's going on, my man? Ooh. All right. So if in case anybody out there hasn't heard Nick Johnson, he is a righteous Strat style playing player, and they make great guitars. Yeah, so Fishman guitar, the PRS Fiore is a great guitar, and in many ways, the benefit that Mark had of having this guitar around to kind of go, well, what would I take from this and what would I change? So that I recall, it's hum, sing, sing with a 2-post bridge, and it's a special guitar. I had a chance to play that, and it was awesome. Played great guitar, more hair than this, but at the same time, an extremely subtle guitar. All right. I need to get going in just a second, but I'm going to bring Brian in to say his goodbye here. Brian, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody that's hung out today, especially if you're new, thanks for hanging out. And those of you that tuned in after the fact, appreciate it. All right, Brian Wahl, close us out here, my man. What do you got to say for us? Hang on, here we go. And
Am I live now? I don't have a mark through me. Doug, if you set me to be live, I have no idea because you froze. Text me, Doug. If I'm live, text me because all of a sudden I see I'm not muted anymore. So I don't know what happened with this screen. Oh, Melissa says yes. Maybe that means yes. I'm live. I don't know. We'll see. If I am live, hey, thanks for hanging out. It was good to be here with you guys. I'm live. Thanks, John. Well, I'll play a little Jesus Culture. Thank you, Melissa. Doug, you are frozen on my side, so I have no idea what's happening, but I told that he kicked it over to me for final thoughts. This thing is, my final thoughts are, these are going to be hard to get. I think they're going to be sold out and for a long time, and I think they're probably going to be one of the best-selling guitars, period, of 2022. That's my guess. They completely knocked it out of the park. The fit, finish, feel, tone is all extremely, extremely high for $850, which I realize is these things, everything's going up. But I think you are going to be very hard-pressed to get a single Strat style guitar that's better than this under $1,000. I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure Fender makes some really, really cool stuff in that range too. Be interesting to shoot that stuff out, but I think if you are after the aesthetic and if you are at all a fan of John Mayer, which who isn't, these are going to be really good. And I like the color Doug has, although this green looks pretty awesome too, in my opinion. It's pretty cool. Those are my thoughts. Thanks for having me, Doug. I'm still alive, it looks like. This is weird. It's falling apart at the seams over here.
There we go. Hey, Brian, thanks again for joining us. Everybody that's kind of hung out on this thing, really appreciate you being part of this.
You can
hang on.
or something.
I tried calling you, but you were disconnected. You had your phone off. In any case,
I'm texting
just such a great guitar.
I'm like, that Ron Swanson bit where he's like, I will answer all of their questions with a question. I just said to Doug, are we done? It's the Ron Swanson quote.
I keep muting this guy and he keeps coming back.
Anyway. Would I have?
I see what happens. If you're in preview mode, I can't actually mute that. So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again. Yeah, no, I thanks, Mel. This guitar is hopefully got something waiting for you. And that's, again, the gift this guitar gave me was it gave me a song that's going to appear on my album. It's like, I sit down with this guitar and I start making music. Not running scales, not doing the mindless noodling that you heard me doing a little bit earlier, although obviously I spent a little time doing that. And if you think about who John Mayer is, and thank you again, everybody. Uh, he's a creative. He creates music. He's a songwriter. And so the key thing about this guitar, that my biggest takeaway is it plays great, it sounds great, it feels great. But most importantly, it was an on-ramp for creativity. And that for me, as I look at all the guitars that are in the room, the most important thing that I need is a guitar that's going to on-ramp the process to writing songs or writing progressions or doing something that's going to inspire me as a musician to get out of the box that I'm in and jump into the box I'm going to get stuck in next. But that transition from where you are to that next place, if I can just offer, a guitar encouragement to the people out there. Again, all these great people, thank you so much. And all the yo-yo folks, you know how to reach me. Melissa, thanks for helping follow up. Again, everybody that's been here, really, really, really appreciate, just everything. And by the way, if you haven't seen, oh wait, that's the backside from the Yo-Yo Factory. But this is the Doppler's Gear Garage official yo-yo. It's so incredibly cool from Yo-Yo Mama at from the Petrucci Guitar Camps, and just wonderful people. And again, what a privilege to just hang out. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you're actually watching on the replay and watched all the way through, you're a lunatic, and I love you for it. So thanks again. Make it a great one, and you take care. I'm already late as heck for my lesson, so I'm going to bring up that Pro Tools track a little bit.